I gave up my dream promotion so she could start her own business and chase success. But while I worked overtime to build our life, she mocked me and ran into the arms of a man who couldn't even pay his rent. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? My name is Michael Hayes, and I'm 33 years old. This is the story of how I learned that loyalty means nothing to someone who values excitement more than sacrifice. When Natalie and I first started dating, we were broke but happy. We lived in a small apartment that leaked when it rained and creaked with every step. Yet, those nights of laughter, shared pizza, and big dreams made me believe we could conquer anything together. I worked at a logistics firm, putting in long hours, while she dreamed of owning a clothing boutique. When her chance finally came, I didn't hesitate. I turned down a huge promotion that would have moved me to another city because she said, "I need you here, Michael." I cashed out savings, took a loan, and helped her rent a small space downtown. Every spare minute I had went into painting walls, setting up racks, and running deliveries. When the shop opened, she cried in my arms and said, "You're my miracle." I believed her. In the beginning, everything was perfect. She was motivated, grateful, and proud of what we'd built together. I still remember her saying, "You believed in me before I did." That sentence used to mean the world to me. I didn't know how fast gratitude could turn into pride, and pride into mockery. As her boutique started gaining attention, something in her changed. She started acting like success belonged only to her. She'd say things like, "You don't understand business like I do," or "You're too safe, Michael. You'll never make real money working for someone else." I'd laugh it off, telling myself it was stress or confidence talking. But behind every smile, there was a hint of superiority that stung. I worked late into the night so we could afford her inventory, bills, and marketing campaigns. She began calling me Mr. Overtime as a joke, laughing in front of her friends. They'd giggle while sipping wine, and I'd just nod, pretending it didn't bother me. But deep down, it did, because I was breaking myself to keep her dream alive while she was starting to look down on me for it. Then one day, she said something that changed everything. "Maybe if you stopped working so much," she said, "you'd actually be fun again." I looked at her, exhausted and confused, wondering when being responsible became something to mock. I didn't realize then that her definition of fun had already found a new name, Jake. It started with small changes, the kind you almost miss until they pile up. Natalie began spending more time at her boutique, saying she needed to network and build relationships. I didn't question it at first, wanted her to succeed. I was proud every time I passed by and saw her name shining on that little sign above the window. But pride slowly turned into doubt when the shop lights stayed on long after closing time. She started coming home later, smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, a sharper, unfamiliar scent. When I'd ask how her day went, she'd give short answers, sometimes distracted, sometimes cold. "It's fine," she'd say. "You wouldn't understand? It's business." That phrase became her shield. Every conversation about her behavior ended with those three words, "It's business." One night, she came home tipsy from a client dinner. Her cheeks were flushed, her smile wide. I reached to take her purse, but she pulled it away, laughing. "Relax, Mr. Serious," she teased. "You're not my dad." The words stung, but what hurt more was how easily they left her lips. No hesitation, no guilt. That was the night I realized she no longer saw me as her partner, but as an obstacle. At work, I was drowning in overtime, trying to catch up after turning down my promotion for her sake. Meanwhile, she was glowing. New clothes, expensive dinners, spa trips labeled as business meetings. I asked once, "How are you affording all this?" She smiled and said, "Don't worry about it. Jake's helping with some marketing stuff." It was the first time I heard his name. Jake, her business partner. I'd met him once during the store's opening month. Young, loud, and broke. He drove an old car that coughed every time it started. I remembered how he looked at her. Bold, familiar, confident. I didn't like it, but I trusted her. I thought I had to. Soon, Natalie started mocking me openly. "You work so hard, but you're still stuck in the same position," she'd say. "Jake says people like you never take risks." Every time she mentioned him, something in her tone shifted, softer, lighter. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was just tired. But love makes you blind long after your heart sees the truth. The distance between us wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical. She slept facing the wall, always tired, always distant. I tried to bring her breakfast, plan weekend getaways, but she'd cancel every time. "I'm meeting clients," she'd say. I stopped asking who the clients were. At work, my co-workers noticed I was quieter, more distracted. I kept telling them everything was fine. But deep down, I knew something was changing. and not in my favor. I could feel it in every silence, every cold glance, every laugh that no longer belonged to me. She was slipping away, not suddenly, but one excuse at a time. I'll never forget the night everything between us started to die. We were at dinner with a few of her friends, people I'd helped her network with, people who had seen me carrying boxes into her store just months before. The conversation turned to work, and one of them asked, "Michael, are you still grinding those 60-hour weeks?" I laughed lightly, saying, "Yeah, but it keeps the bills paid." That's when she said it, the line that still echoes in my head. She smirked and said, "Yeah, he loves being a workhorse. He'd rather spend time with spreadsheets than with me." Everyone laughed, even her. I felt my face heat up, but I forced a smile. She didn't stop there. She leaned back in her chair and added, "At least Jake knows how to have fun. Not everyone can live life that loosely." The table went quiet for a second. Then someone changed the subject. But in that silence, my world tilted. On the way home, I didn't speak. She noticed, of course. "Oh, come on," she said, rolling her eyes. It was a joke. I stared out the window, fighting back words I'd regret. She had compared me, the man who sacrificed his dreams for her, to her broke, carefree business partner. And she did it in front of people. That wasn't a joke. That was humiliation. The next few weeks were a blur of tension and distance. She stopped cooking dinner, stopped saying goodnight. When I'd come home late, she'd barely look up from her phone. Her laughter, that light, beautiful sound that once filled our apartment, was now reserved for someone else. I could hear it in the next room, muffled through her phone as she texted. Sometimes she'd turn the screen away when I walked in, pretending it was business. But her smile told a different story. I started noticing Jake's name everywhere, in her conversations, in her Instagram tags, even on her desk calendar. Lunch with Jay became a regular event. I asked once, calmly, "Do you ever work without him?" She snapped back, "Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't need company." That sentence hit harder than any betrayal I could have imagined. I realized then, she didn't just cheat physically. She'd already checked out emotionally. I stopped arguing after that. I focused on work, burying myself in projects, pretending everything was fine. But inside, something was breaking. Every insult she threw chipped away at the man who once believed love was stronger than ambition. She mocked me for being loyal, for being stable, for being me. And as her laughter echoed through our apartment, I promised myself that one day she'd understand what real loss felt like. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you like this? Comment below. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday night, the kind of quiet evening where the universe decides to break you. I came home late from work, exhausted, my tie loose and my hands aching from hours of overtime. Natalie was in the shower, her phone charging on the counter. Normally I wouldn't touch it, but that night, a notification popped up, a message from Jake. It read, "You looked incredible last night. Still thinking about you." My stomach dropped. I froze, staring at the screen as another message came in seconds later. "Don't forget to delete our photos. Don't want your boring man seeing them." I felt something inside me snap. Not rage, not shock, but cold, hollow realization. Everything I'd ignored, every late night, every strange laugh, it all made sense now. I picked up the phone with shaking hands and opened the chat. There they were. Hundreds of messages, photos, inside jokes. He called her my muse. She called him the real man in my life. I scrolled, reading things that scorched my chest. She complained about me, mocked me, even told him about our fights, twisting them into entertainment. "He thinks working hard makes him a hero," one message read. "He has no idea how boring he is in bed." I dropped the phone on the counter, my vision blurred with tears I didn't even realize were falling. The sound of the shower stopped. She stepped out, wrapped in a towel, humming softly, the same woman who just hours earlier told another man she wished she'd met him first. I wiped my face and asked quietly, "Who's Jake to you, Natalie?" She froze, the color draining from her face. Her eyes darted to the phone. "He's just a friend," she said quickly, too quickly. I held up the screen. "Then why is your friend telling you to delete photos of last night?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. Then came the stammering, the excuses. "It's not what it looks like," she said. "We were drunk. We were stupid." I shook my head, feeling more tired than angry. "You've been seeing him for months," I said. "Don't insult me with half-truths now." She started crying, reaching for my hand, but I stepped back. "You used my sacrifices to build your dream," I said, "and you mocked me for doing the work that paid for it." For a long moment, we just stood there, the sound of dripping water filling the silence between us. Then I picked up my jacket and keys. "You wanted freedom," I said. "Now you have it." I walked out without slamming the door. I didn't have to. The silence I left behind said everything. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even cry. I just sat in my car, staring at the city lights, realizing that love can turn to ashes long before it dies. The night I walked out, I didn't take anything but my wallet and keys. The air outside felt heavier than usual. Cold, damp, filled with the kind of silence that presses against your chest. I drove without direction for hours, my phone buzzing nonstop. Her name kept lighting up the screen, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Every call, every text felt meaningless now. The next morning, I moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't much. Peeling paint, creaky floors, and a view of nothing but traffic. But for the first time in months, it felt like mine. No lies, no mocking laughter, just quiet. I needed that silence more than I needed air. Days turned into weeks. I focused on work, putting in every ounce of energy I had left. My boss noticed my effort and offered me a chance at the same promotion I once turned down, the one I'd sacrificed for her. I took it immediately. It felt poetic, like life was giving me a do-over. Meanwhile, rumors about Natalie started spreading. Her boutique wasn't doing well. Her new marketing plans with Jake had drained her budget. I didn't gloat. I just listened in silence when mutual friends called to tell me. One even mentioned that Jake had been offered a position at a major corporate firm as her new boss. When I heard that, I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. The man she'd chosen over me, the fun, careless, broke one, was suddenly the one holding her professional future in his hands. And knowing Jake, he wouldn't be kind. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. She started posting vague quotes online, the kind that scream regret but never say the word. Friends told me she'd been crying at work, that Jake had started ignoring her, acting distant. He'd used her to climb higher, just like she'd used me. The same ladder she'd kicked me off was now crumbling beneath her feet. One afternoon, I got a call from her number. I didn't answer. But a few minutes later, she left a voicemail. Her voice cracked as she said, "I made a mistake, Michael. Please call me." I replayed it once, then deleted it. The man I used to be, the one who always forgave, was gone. Karma didn't need my help. It was already at work. As the weeks passed, I began sleeping better. My new job paid well. My co-workers respected me. And for the first time, I wasn't defined by someone else's ambition. I wasn't angry anymore, just grateful. Grateful that life had shown me the truth before I wasted another year on a lie. She had chosen her path, and now she was finally walking it alone. By the time spring rolled around, I had already rebuilt most of my life. My new position came with a corner office, a raise, and a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I worked with focus and purpose again, not to prove anything to anyone, but simply because I loved what I did. It was strange how success felt lighter when it wasn't about earning someone's approval. Then one morning, while grabbing coffee before work, I ran into an old mutual friend of mine and Natalie's. Her face said everything before her words even started. "You heard about Jake, right?" she asked. I shook my head. "He got promoted again, regional director now. Guess who reports to him?" I didn't need her to finish. The corner of my mouth lifted slightly. Apparently, Jake had taken over operations for multiple stores, including Natalie's boutique franchise. He'd become her direct superior, the same man she'd risked everything for, the one she called fun and adventurous, the same man she'd once bragged about over dinner, while mocking me for being too serious. Life, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humor. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Jake began cutting her hours, refusing to fund her marketing campaigns, and publicly questioning her performance during meetings. People whispered that he was treating her like just another employee, no special favors. One of her old coworkers told me that Jake had even started seeing someone else, a new intern, barely out of college. Natalie's boutique began to lose its charm. Sales dropped. Investors pulled back. Every decision she made seemed to backfire, and every complaint she filed went straight to Jake's desk, where it was conveniently ignored. I imagined her sitting there, realizing that the man she had destroyed her relationship for was now the one destroying her career. One evening, I got a message from her out of nowhere. Just 3 words. "You were right." I stared at the screen for a long time before deleting it. There was nothing left to say. She'd mocked my work ethic, belittled my loyalty, and traded stability for excitement. Now, she was learning the price of mistaking noise for success. People asked if I felt satisfied watching her downfall. The truth? Not really. Revenge wasn't supposed to make me happy. It was supposed to make me free. And I was, completely. I didn't need to humiliate her or remind her of what she'd done. Life had already done that for me, perfectly and publicly. The tables had turned, and this time, I didn't even have to lift a finger. If you were in my place, would you forgive or walk away? Tell me in comments. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when her name appeared on my phone again. Months had passed since I'd last heard from her, and for a moment, I almost didn't recognize the number, but my gut knew. Some ghosts don't stay buried. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. Her voice was soft, cracked, and nothing like the confident woman I once knew. "Michael," she whispered, "can we talk?" I hesitated, but curiosity won. We met at a small coffee shop near my office. Neutral ground, bright enough that memories couldn't hide. She was already there when I arrived, sitting alone by the window. I barely recognized her. The fire in her eyes was gone. Her hair was unkempt. Her hands trembled as she stirred her coffee. The woman who once looked down on me now looked like someone searching for air. She started talking before I could even sit down. "Jake fired me," she said flatly. "He said I wasn't a good fit anymore, after everything I did for him." Her voice cracked. "He replaced me with someone younger. He won't even take my calls." She looked up at me, eyes glistening. "You warned me, Michael. I should have listened." I stayed silent. There was nothing to say. Her pain was self-inflicted, the result of every choice she made when she thought she was untouchable. She wiped her tears and continued. "I was stupid. You were good to me, better than I ever deserved." She laughed bitterly. "I made fun of you for working too hard, but you were the one actually building something real." I could have gloated. I could have told her how karma always circles back. But as I looked at her, broken, lost, and stripped of everything she once valued, I didn't feel triumph, just clarity. "Natalie," I said quietly, "you didn't just lose me. You lost yourself trying to chase something that never existed." She reached across the table, her fingers trembling. "Can we try again, please?" she asked. "I've learned my lesson. I just want to start over." I looked at her hand, but didn't take it. "You taught me something," I said. "Not about love, about respect. I can forgive you, but I'll never forget how easily you destroyed what I built." Her tears fell silently. For a moment, I saw the woman I once loved. Scared, fragile, human. But that woman was gone long ago, buried under lies and pride. I stood, placed a few dollars on the table and said, "Take care of yourself." As I walked away, she called after me softly, "You really don't hate me?" I turned once and said, "No, I don't hate you. I'm just done with you." That was the last time I ever saw her. And for the first time, I felt nothing. Not pain, not anger, not love, just peace. After that meeting, I didn't think about her much anymore. The closure wasn't dramatic. No tears, no shouting, no revenge plot to finish. It was simply over. I went back to my life, back to the quiet mornings and long walks that didn't feel heavy anymore. The weight she'd left behind had finally lifted, and all that remained was clarity. Work was going better than ever. The same company where I'd once been overlooked had now made me a department head. I bought a modest house closer to the office. Nothing flashy, but peaceful. Every time I unlocked the door after a long day, I reminded myself, this was built from my effort, not my sacrifice for someone else's dreams. Sometimes I'd hear about Natalie through mutual acquaintances. They'd say she was working small retail jobs, bouncing from city to city. I never asked for details. There was nothing left for me in those stories. But part of me hoped she'd finally learned something from the chaos she created, that she'd stop looking for validation in people who used her and start rebuilding herself from the ashes. Because that's what I had to do. The real lesson came quietly, in moments when I least expected it. Like the first time I sat in my office, sipping coffee in silence, realizing I wasn't angry anymore. Or the afternoon I found her old business card tucked in an old drawer and felt nothing. That's when I understood the truth. Revenge isn't about seeing someone fall. It's about standing taller without them. Love, I realized, shouldn't feel like exhaustion. It shouldn't demand that you shrink so someone else can shine. The right person won't ask you to sacrifice your dreams. They'll build theirs beside yours. I had learned that the hard way, through betrayal, heartbreak, and nights staring at the ceiling, wondering why I wasn't enough. But now, I knew better. I was enough. She just wasn't capable of seeing it. One evening, I walked by the old street where her boutique once stood. The windows were empty, the for lease sign peeling under the sun. I paused for a second, then smiled. That place used to represent everything I lost. Now, it reminded me of everything I survived. Life has a strange way of evening the scales. Sometimes you don't need to lift a hand. The truth does the work for you. And when it finally settles, you're left with something no betrayal can destroy. Peace. I took one last look at that empty storefront and whispered to myself, you can mock a man for his hard work, but you can't live without it. Then I walked away, free, stronger, and completely untouchable. This is how my girlfriend betrayed me. Should I forgive or move on? Tell me in comments. If this story reminded you that success is the best revenge, hit like, share it with someone who needs strength, and subscribe for more stories that prove karma never forgets.